in what doesn't help me in what I want that I didn't know that I wanted, because those things kind of just appear. Um, so and with businesses that are local, they're very receptive to who you are. And then I always determine before I ask anything how much of something, what exactly I want, and how much of it I want. And this does not apply to corporations like the Container Store, Home Depot, Target. This does not apply because there's a whole different way of going about getting things from large national corporations. Um, so I think like, okay, let's say it's a printer and I want 4 or 5, the what do you call those, like a ream or the package of legal paper that's black. Let's say I'm looking for black paper, and I might know that they have black paper, I might not. So what I'll do is I ask very specifically, like, what we're looking for is 5 reams of black paper, and they'll say, well, we don't have black paper, but we have blue. You guys want blue? And I always say, like, yes, thank you so much, we'll take the blue, and then continue on my search. But I always say thank you so much. And then what I do, can you share screen with, so what I then do, okay. Oh wait, I have to say I want to share screen, right? I have to learn this every single time I do it.
Yes, no,
Yeah, you're able to now.
I literally have to learn it every time. Okay, so can you guys see this? So even if you have like, I think of whoever you are, there's a branding that you could have. You can make a really simple logo or just say our class at blah, blah, blah elementary, like up here, blah, blah, blah pre-K or blah, blah, blah child care center, whatever it is. I mean, it could literally just be a smiley face, but something that you put on these pieces of yours that's branding, because you're wanting to be consistent in your branding, basically. And then I send always, so I'll ask people, will you take a tax deduction for this? And if they will, or if they want, sometimes they say, no, 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 we don't want a tax deduction. So then I do what I'll show you next. But so I just say, thank you, basically. And I say that we're nonprofit. And I always use this sentence, no goods or services were provided to you in return for your donation. And I always use this phrase, educational purposes. So and it can be literally one sentence, but what you want to say is like, you gave us, we didn't like bribe you. Basically, that's what you're saying. And then I just say a little bit about what happens to the materials, and just tell them, like, you're great, we love you, thank you for being involved. And then always some sort of contact information, because what will happen is if they will end up like falling in love with you, and so they'll want to call you again when they have like 17 reams of green paper. They'll remember you and they'll be like, hey, do you guys want this, do you want that? So you want to make sure you leave them contact information. And then the other thing that I send is I do this because I don't know, I just like it. It's a hard copy of a thank you note, because I don't think people get things in the mail, and they kind of like it. And stamps are fun. It's fun to talk to the kids about the post office mailing. So what I do is I have everyone sign on the back right here. So everyone just makes a little sign, but you could have all your kiddos write their little name or include a drawing in there or pictures of them using the loose parts. Anything to kind of connect them to what you actually did with those materials is yeah, I mean, that's how you make people remember you. Like, I'll always, if teachers are taking some of the materials, like for example, we have an interior decorator and he's like really into it now. He's really into like what we do with the materials. And I'll take pictures of like people leaving with the materials and smiling, and ask teachers like, can you send me pictures of what you guys end up doing? And now he emails all the pictures and everything I send him to corporate. So it's a big corporation, but now corporate knows, oh, we imagination. And so now I'm his first line, right? He calls me, he gives me stuff. Most of the time it's way too much stuff, but I still take it because it's the stuff I want. And they found me. Sometimes donors will find you once they learn that you're kind of out and about in the community. Someone will say, oh, that classroom, they, you know what, they really like XYZ. So that is my process with people who are available to me, who I can meet face to face, who I run into, etc. So then there's the subject of corporate donors. Almost 100% of the time, they will ask you, but still, oh, let me back up. So still with corporate donors, always have in mind, like I want, 15 or 25 pieces of PVC, let's say. So sometimes if it's that limited a quantity, you can actually go to the store manager and just say, hey, here's who we are. Then we have little branding, our branding things. And they're going to say, well, I can't do that because I'm not authorized. And you'll say, well, what do you do for material donations? And usually they're like, right? Because they don't do that. So then they have to talk to a manager, like who's above them. A lot of times you have to they'll ask for a letter. So there's always going to be something that they have to do of someone above them. Sometimes they even have to contact corporate and you just say, okay, yeah, let me know. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't happen. Or they'll say, go online and look for charitable donations on our website. Like Container Store has this thing that says charitable giving, and then it says request a gift card. So you go in there and you request a gift card and they'll ask you all your information, everything I just said. Just use your branding so you don't have to make this stuff up. And if you have more specific, like a specific project, like we're working on vehicles or we're studying the Earth's rotation around the sun, or whatever you're doing, more specific, more give them a picture in their mind of what it's like in your classroom. It's so fun in there. Like everybody's working really hard. Whatever you want to say, whatever you say it from your heart. Like not what I say for me, but for what you say for you in your classroom. And how did you arrive at wanting this material? Like what made you think this would work? What made you, what gave you the connection? Like, do you remember does anyone remember the movie Working Girl with Melanie Griffith and Harrison Ford? And she her snotty boss, Sigourney Weaver, is like, I was the one, this is my project. And the guy who's buying their company was like, he asked her, even though she was a secretary, how did you get to it? And she pulled out this little newspaper clipping and showed him what she was reading on the ferry and was like, I started thinking, Trask radio. And he saw that that was the legitimate connection. So we just want to be specific, not random. I really think that helps in this. So there's always, with corporations like Target used to have this book that you go in and sign and you put your EIN number and then you have to write a little letter and it goes to the manager. I haven't asked Target for stuff in a long time, but so their methods might have changed. But there's always sort of a way that you have to go through layers of people, even for materials. But a lot of times they'll just issue you a gift card and then you can go get the PVC. So the other piece of what you want that you think you can't get, which is when I find a manufacturer and there are a lot of companies that want to be community involved. They have to do donations during the year. They have a certain amount they have to donate. But everything is manufactured overseas. So I'll always ask for irregularities or rejects of whatever it is I'm looking for. Like say it's really cool spools or wooden cutouts or whatever it is. And they'll say, well, we manufacture in China. And then so whatever's discarded gets thrown away in China. There is a way that's a long sort of arduous process that if you're parts raising for a classroom, I don't know if I would do it unless I involved the kids and like showed them what I was doing and talked about international trade and how materials have to get paid for and how expensive shipping is and all that. Which you could do. I mean, it's kind of an interesting, fun process, but you really have to, like, I call it follow the breadcrumbs. So I get a hold of the manufacturer. There's someone who doesn't know what I'm talking about. I say, this is what I always say, who's the best person to talk to? And then, so I try to get a name. And I try to get someone in the company who maybe even is just the distributor on board, who's like, oh, that sounds, oh, well, really? Oh, okay. Well, I guess, okay. I'll try to find someone who knows, you know. And so I just keep following the breadcrumbs. I try to make that person my contact. And I always give, and this is true even when you walk in, this is a piece I left out. Even when you talk to people face to face or your online application for a gift card, I always say, give them the option to not give. So I always say, do not feel obligated. You know, don't feel obligated. We're just out and about asking, but I don't want you to feel like whatever makes you comfortable. I usually say don't feel obligated. Um, just to give them an out, an easy way to say no and know that you're not going to be all sad when they say no. Um, so I always tell that contact person if I'm dealing with a company that manufactures in a different country, I always say, you know, don't feel obligated, do whatever you can do. Like whatever you feel, whatever efforts you feel like you could make, that would be great. We would totally appreciate it. Um, and sometimes it pans out and sometimes it doesn't. One thing that big corporations or companies like that can do is they can have the company donate the shipping cost. But if they do that, it's a pretty big tax write-off because it won't come just that amount unless somebody, like say in China, gets on board, right? So if I happen to run into a bilingual person who speaks Chinese and they talk to, and then they send like a little package, but those shipping costs are tax write-offs for them. That is the most complicated process. And it is I think it would be fun to do with kids, you know, find out what happens, see who responds, who returns phone calls, like who returns emails. What's the difference between using your voice? What's the difference between using your face? What's the difference between a handwritten note? Like all those things about how we interface in the world and commerce and economy and, you know, how the world works, how it really works. So I might do that in the classroom. I don't know. It can be very like it can also be very sort of disheartening because you might put in like 6 hours and then nothing. You hear just like crickets. So I think if you're working on a smaller scale, that would be sort of, unless you find something you absolutely feel you must have, and do not give up. But just know that it might end anyway. But also know that like 6 months later, someone might call you and be like, hey, I have your brochure in front of me. It finally arrived. I'm in Puerto Rico. Like, what are you guys looking for? So it's fun in that way, but it also can be like, it's not working, frustrating. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think the important thing is the branding and also knowing what you want and how much you want of it. And I always try to frame it in a way of like, it's very doable for them. Like I know this donor easily could donate $100 in gift cards. Like that to Target, that's like not, you know, that's like less than a penny. So I don't go and ask for like $1,000. Um, and I build up relationships. And then those people normally will contact me and say, hey, we have extra this, or we have extra that, and then, you know, over time, you can ask for more. You can create kind of what I call a donor base. So, and this doesn't have to happen in your classroom, but generally in fundraising, there's an individual donor base. Like I have individual donors who save stuff for me, like bottle caps and sticks and little cups. But I know now with these individual donors, if I said, hey, we're doing a fundraising and I'm trying to build an individual donor base, which I'm very blessed. I don't really have to do. I could do it, but I don't have to do it. They would easily write a check. They would happily write a check. Um, and now, like Goodman's Interiors, which is a good example, if I said to Jason, hey, we're doing a fundraising drive, I want to have a couple corporate donors, they would do it in a minute because they love us. And then like Vermeer Corporation, which is a really heavy equipment company, and my fiance works for them. Those guys save all these like gorgeous metal, these big metal pieces, gorgeous, and they wash them. They wash all the grease off of them. They have a box there that says "We Imagination." It's a big network of stores, so now like the CEO knows who we are. It's just over time. And whenever I include their logo, or like if you have a class newsletter, you want to thank them in the newsletter, say thank you to Target for giving us 16 bins so each child could have their own mailbox or whatever it is, so that they see that you're dropping their name. And so it's a win-win because they get to give and they get free advertising. So you always want to say, oh, we love our donors. We talk about our donors in our classroom. We tell the families, we send out your name in a newsletter. Yeah, and then share that stuff with them too. So that's my methodology. It's not mistake proof by any, it's just not. And asking for materials is different from asking for money. I think that it's refreshing to people when they're like, oh, you're not asking me for, $50. You're asking me for paper, like something I actually have that I could give you. So I think it's a lot more fun than actual fundraising. Yeah, that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
Paige, I have one for you. Just in your experience, do you think going in person makes a bigger, or do you get more than a phone call or an email, would you say?
I think generally, if you can go in person, it's always a good idea because then they have they'll kind of remember who you are. And really, I mean, for me, what I do is kind of like off the beaten path. So I really want to put like tangible things in front of people so they can go, oh, okay. Like it takes them a while to get what I'm talking about. But for you all, if you're educators, it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to say, I'm in infant mental health or whatever you do. I'm a teacher at this school. Like they're gonna grasp on much more quickly than they do to what I say. It just takes them time to like understand. So it's better for me to be right there. I think though that if people in your community kind of know your school, you could just email them and start with that and see if you get a response. Like you could try the easiest path possible. But again, like with hard copy, with actual thank you notes with a stamp and a postmark, people know that you made the extra effort to reach them and reach out to them. Emailing is just easier. And I think, when we fall back on kind of the old world practices of how we used to do things with handwriting and everything else, I think people appreciate those efforts. And that includes going to them in person.
And then one more page for me, I'm sorry. Again, just in your experience, do you think local businesses or like big name like Target, or like which one's more likely to give? Or it just depends on you're
Yeah,
asking?
it just depends. Like once
Okay.
you get used to kind of doing your online explanation of who you are, it can be really easy. Like you could go on a website. Like the thing about retail is that we don't always want what they have, right? So one of my fallbacks is the Container Store. But once you kind of are practiced in your branding, you just go online and kind of plug it in. And sometimes like you'll get in the mail like 10 days later gift cards, and you'll be like, oh, that's cool. Because you already gave them all the tax information, you already gave them what they need to write off this giving, and they already have like, they give away $25,000 a quarter or something like that. I mean, big corporations have to, because if they don't give these sums out, they're taxed on that profit. So they benefit from giving you money within the confines of what they have to get rid of, because otherwise that profit is taxed and it actually ends up costing them money. So they all have what's called a required distribution. It's just a matter of finding a way to get a hold of it. And the thing that does happen in big corporations is they end up creating foundations because they have to give away, $250,000 in a quarter. So then they'll have like a grant application process. I call them mini grants. And what I will do is, and I don't do this for Weimagination, but what I used to do is just apply and do all the things that you normally do, the specifics, your project. And sometimes those mini grants will be 1,500. Sometimes they'll be, 2,500. Sometimes it'll be a more complicated process, but again, you're establishing a relationship. So once, let's say you did get a mini grant of 1,000 or 1,500, and then you kept sending them pictures and narratives, like just like what you do in the observation, documentation, and planning process, right? You can just take pieces of your documentation and send with a picture. So we want to keep connecting back to the people who give us things. And over time, they'll be like, oh yeah, we know them. They got $2,500 last year, give it. And so it won't be like arduous anymore. You'll just be, and once you have like something that you wrote that you like, you can just plug it in places. So yes and no. I think for very generalized parts raising, local businesses are absolutely the best. And they really appreciate when you say, oh, we always talk about our donors. We love our donors. We put your logo up in our classroom. The more you say your logo, they like that. So you say, oh, we put your logo in our newsletter. We put your logo here. So, and say, like, we definitely let our families know who our donors are. And we really, and I always am like, I probably overthink people, but I think they get freaked out that I'm like so excited about green paper. I'm so into it. It's like, yay, it's Christmas. Like, it's just so fun, to just have these things kind of appear in front of you. And to share with them stories like, oh, the kids took this and they built a castle, and so they're like, oh, it's interesting to people to think about the difference between what this item is meant for in the real world and what happens when it goes into a classroom. And and we counted 1,000 of them, and they all learned to count to 1,000, and we measured, or we weighed, or so they can they get to go back to remembering how they discovered things, how heavy things are, how light things are, what kind of volume do they have, where did things come from in the world, where did that wood come from, what is deforestation, why do we do that, how do we replant trees, does it work, does it not work, where and these guys hear about stuff on the news that freaks them out, like wildfires. And the more information we give them about how that happened, like, well, there wasn't deforestation, there was overgrowth of weeds, and there are invasive species, right? Because people traveled from one country to another and started planting things that we can't control. Just these things, I mean, even to like, I don't know, I mean, 2-year-olds, I just always say, teach up. I just say these complicated things, and they're just like, oh, this human, this adult is like down on my level, right? So they're not talking out their knees and is like excited. That's what they see. Like, this adult is excited. And so it's got to be cool, right? If I'm into it, it's got to be cool. And, I mean, it could just be like, I'm using the globe, right? So they could just be like, oh, that's the world. That circle is the world. Like, how is that? It doesn't seem like it's round around here. Like, we don't slide around on curves. Like, what is that? And so you could just do gravity, right? So I always say teach up and then move back down as you need to, but you don't need to move back down. They'll get it where they are. And it might just be this person is smiling and holding this cool red round thing. And what is that? Can I hold it? You know, and then you're just doing the original loose parts thing, right? Fingers. There's 10 of them. And so, but they'll do that for you. You don't have to do that. That's your observation part of it. So you just do you. I always say, just do you. Like, what's so fun and exciting, and oh, yay, we're getting green paper. It's just, and then they'll teach themselves. I think. And and then you don't have to make stuff up on your lesson plan. Because green paper, you could teach 6 months just with origami and folding a piece in half. And, you know, what happens when we put it in water? What happens, you know, when we freeze it? What happens if we put water and we freeze paper? And what's the difference between wax paper and water frozen and regular paper? I mean, there's just usually if you start saying what would happen if, you'll think of like, well, what really would happen? Like, if you put seeds in paper and wet paper and keep the paper damp, some seeds will start growing. But it's fun to use like 4 different seeds, and then you show them scientific method. What do you guys think is going to happen? I don't know. But do you think this one will grow or this one? So it, like, you really can go any direction with whatever you get. But I think with parts raising, just to back up, it's really important to have an idea of what project you're working on or what area you're working on. Because, you know, I call those like the green paper thing, it's a rabbit hole. And I think it's great to go down with kiddos, but with parts raising, I just keep the language simple. This is what we're looking for. This is what our project is. And you can share with them, this is how many families we have, you know, share with them, like half of us are Spanish speaking. People are interested in the details of what happens in daily life, I think. Okay, sorry, I was talking a really lot.
So I have a quick question, Miss Page.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about something that I've seen you do, and I think it's so important, but you always bring it back to like play and of course what children are learning in play, like you have the language for that. And I think it's really hard for people to say no to children. So I've learned that as well. Like it's just different than adults. But if you say, you know, our little ones, our preschoolers, or you know, our toddlers, we're learning about this, I think that's important to remember. I also think that the relationships that you've made, like you even get on this like name basis of knowing people and like, oh, they do this and they do that, and you get to know what they do, and then you share them, you're sharing what you do. And I think that's all about the relationship, but it's so important because I think you can get so much more when you're kind and you're patient, and then also that you give them time to understand. Like I've seen Paige come, like somebody come to donate and she'll spend an hour with them and talking about like the parts and what they're used for and where they're going and how they're being distributed. And so I think that it's just so important. But even if like you personally can't do it, even finding someone in your community who can help and getting the word out there and getting advocates in play with you, I think is important because it does take a lot of time and relationships. And I just appreciate all you've done for us for the we, but I know that it's a lot of work and it takes a lot of time. So
Oh, thank you
awesome.
so much. That's the other thing, is once you have your branding, like even if it's a 1-page thing with pictures of the kiddos or whatever it is, you can say to someone, oh, you're going there, like you're going to the hardware store, will you take this, and ask them for like whatever they have. Sometimes I say whatever you have lying around. I do say that. But like ask them if they have any nuts and bolts, or like Veronica and I went to the key to the lock shop at you. And sometimes every single time you have to kind of reestablish and do that. And I didn't have my brochure with me, but I mean, it never hurts to ask. It never hurts to ask.
Does anyone else have a question for Ms. Page?
No, but lots of thank yous in the chat page. And if you wouldn't mind sharing with us a copy of that letter, we can share it on our Padlet in case any of our participants want to kind of have a template of a letter if they wanted to do a little bit more larger scaling parts raising. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. So,
Well, I'm gonna listen for a little while and then I'm gonna have to jump off. But
okay,
thank you all.
great. Thank you so much, Paige, for being here today. We are going to dive into what it looks like to, on a small scale, maybe what it might look like to have open-ended materials and parts in my centers, in my programs, versus what it might look like to have a space like Weimagination and being able to stock, so to say, that and what that looks like to museums, to community coalitions after we get back from the break. But one of my big takeaways from this discussion was the relationship. And so thank you so much, Paige, for really highlighting that and what it takes to like put in the time to build a relationship with partners and how we do that, because that ties into exactly our conversation that we were having earlier too. So let's take a quick break. Hannah, how long do we have?
Let's do 15 minutes.
Okay,
That works for you
perfect.
guys?
So we'll come back at 10:40-ish. Does that sound good? Okay, and then we'll dive into some of those community examples and move into the last part of our day already. Okay, enjoy your break. Welcome back, everyone. As we all join in. Hope you had a nice, refreshing break. Okay. Again, awesome presentation from Paige. Really diving into different levels of parts raising. If we were looking at supplying again our centers programs, coalitions, or if we have the opportunity to have a space to have some of these recycled open-ended materials, just really awesome ideas. And so now we're going to dive into looking at what is going on across the state already. So I'd like to just introduce this as to what I did first in the Head Start program that I worked in. I had the luxury of having a lot of space. And I say that because I have worked in early intervention settings, school districts, where my office literally was a closet. So we have to face that reality. Or in early intervention settings where my office or home visiting is my car. And we don't, and then at the center, like at the program, at the building, we had a small closet to keep some things in. So we don't always have space. So what does that look like? Let alone thinking about for parents and caregivers and grandparents, what that looks like. Some of us live in small apartments and some of us live in houses with lots of storage and in between that. So what does that really look like for a space to store open-ended materials, considering all of these different perspectives, right? Not even diving into the cultural perspectives, but we've talked about that in our in-person piece, but let's just even talk about space. So my Head Start Center, I had lots and lots and lots of storage space, but we started out with being a Reggio-inspired program, but also maintaining our state licensing and our early learning outcomes through Head Start and performance standards. So what that means is there's a lot to juggle with making and not even talking about the curriculum, ensuring that we're following all the health and safety guidelines, and setting up our classrooms in that way, but also being mindful of developmentally appropriate materials being set out, as well as those safety pieces. So the program that I worked for this was something that needed time to introduce. I couldn't just come in there and say, we're doing this, and it was very well received. So it took a little bit of time to get to that space. So how I started was just simply a bookshelf in our supply room that was a place and space for teachers and therapists that came into our centers to access open-ended materials as they needed, and to inspire them to think about what open-ended materials could look like, and also for us to use at parent events, to have space and places for families and parents and caregivers to explore with open-ended materials. But I didn't have much. It was a bookshelf. It was very like intentional time. We're doing this with our curriculum, and we're going to also add in the open-ended materials to enhance the curriculum. And so it started with a bookshelf. And then the bookshelf became full because then our teachers started to get excited about this. And, oh, I can bring this in, and I have some empty jars, and I have some milk jugs or whatnot. And then our janitors got excited and started saving things. And so then it just began to grow and grow and grow. But again, we were lucky to have the space to do so. So it can be a bag in your car, or at your desk if you're a virtual home visitor, or a bag in your car if you're an EI professional, or a home visitor going to house. It can be a bookshelf. It can be a Rubbermaid container. It can be a whole building. So think of the possibilities. So now I'd like to share some things that are going on around our communities. So we were so lucky to talk to Macy from our San Miguel Early Childhood Coalition, who's part of our SOAR project, as well as Leticia that's here. And we asked if we could share what they did. So I was so lucky to be a part of a professional development that happened last year that their Early Childhood Coalition in their county set up for early childhood professionals, mainly educators in their community that attended. Leticia, please correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like there were even some family members that attended too. But it was just so robust and so wonderful just to see all of those professionals in one space. But one thing they encouraged professionals to do was to bring open-ended materials along with non-perishable food items. So they were kind of creating a drive for open-ended materials, and they were also supporting the drive for the non-perishable food items to provide to families. So the professional development was offered free to the professionals in the community. All that was simply asked of them was to bring some open-ended materials or non-perishable food items. So just a glance at how many folks were there. So think about all the materials that could be collected. And so here were just some examples of some of the materials that were collected.
And I think, Lindsay, too, we were just talking about this the other day because we kind of wanted to do something again like that. We had parents, teachers, coaches from Little League in our community, anyone who was kind of involved with children at some point or another. It was interesting to see like families and just like everyone who from different perspectives like go out and actually do all this fun stuff, but we really enjoyed, our time there and just seeing how every different aspect of our community was there, learning from different perspectives. So there's like, coaches from the Little League at the Las Vegas City Schools there, and we got to enjoy playing. And even some people that you wouldn't even think, like administrators from principals and stuff, going out and actually like playing. We were just all hanging out. So it was a good experience. It was really nice.
It was so good. It was such a beautiful location. And it's just an idea of like, where do I start? We're just giving you so many ideas right now. Where do I start to scale if I were to start to collect some materials? And I mean, these are things that everyone has around their house. And Leticia, where are those items stored?
Everywhere where we could find, really. We have our collision classroom, which we have parts there. We just had our last Noches de Familia, well, not our last one, but in March for Head Start. So we actually gave some of those parts out to families to take. In our classrooms now, we have some just, in bins, just wherever we can find, really. Like, we kind of just have them, of course, like just in closets and stuff, but the ones I brought back from Imagination, we gave to the parents for Noches to take. And it's just become like, it's kind of just like sharing with others. I think though that event really helped, educate our community on how it's important and loose parts and things like that. Because for them, they didn't really understand until they got there. So we kind of just have them everywhere we can in our centers and our little play areas in the classrooms too. So wherever we could find space.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for adding on to that as well. We had some opportunity to do some outdoor play too. So Holly that facilitated our outdoor play experience at our in-person SOAR session in January, her and I facilitated a really fun outdoor play experience that was brought from the everyday junk recipes that we shared with you last session. So these are all, again, ideas on what it might look like for my center, my program, my community, my coalition, if I have access to a coalition. And again, I asked Leticia, where are they stored? Because this was a coalition effort and we don't always have, say, an office or a space that's accessible through our coalitions. So, but we can certainly make partnerships with local school districts, with early childhood centers and say, hey, can we, use a closet? Can we, make a partnership with the county or the city and use a room to store things? There are lots of possibilities. Whether you do it, like I said, on a small scale of what you collect yourself to show families, or to show other professionals, just like I said, in a little bag or bin, to all the way to larger scale operations and collecting materials. So,
And we actually, another idea was, because the classroom, it was like a contradicting thing with like the fire marshal of like it becoming a fire hazard. But Macy and I had talked about even purchasing like a small, even like a trailer, like where kind of like a little, not like a camper, but like something where we can store those within like a place that can be mobile too. So we can like maybe show the other schools something, because it's like hard to have it in that classroom because then they complain about like fire marshal and stuff like that. So that was an idea too that we're thinking about.
wow, that's a really great idea too, because as we know, especially in our rural communities, it's harder for families to get to spaces in our more centrally located, like metropolitan areas, which are very rural themselves in most of our counties in New Mexico. So what is the best way to reach them? And that is actually to go to them and having mobile resources, if that's possible, to get out to those smaller communities. I love that. Okay, thanks, Leticia, so much. Now I'm going to take you on another journey. We've been journeying all over the state, all through different professions. It's been kind of fun. Hannah and I recently had the opportunity to visit Taos. Taylor's unfortunately not able to make it today, but we definitely wanted to show you something that they're working on there, which is actually a museum. So again, another large scale operation, but in a different category than say like our Reimagination Center that has materials to supply to early childhood professionals. This is a space and place for families to come with their little ones to explore open-ended play. This museum, and it's just chock full of open-ended materials, and this museum is free to anyone that attends. So through partnerships that Taylor and her team have leveraged with the city and county and funding that they've applied for, they've been able to fund this museum an interactive space for families for free to anyone that attends. You don't have to be a resident of the city or the county. You can be from out of town. So if you're ever in that area, I encourage you to stop by and take a look. So this of course is some sand play and then some really cool light up features in that same room too on the wall. So having, you know, a stand-up activity, we know how that changes things too versus tabletop versus sitting on the ground. That's awesome. A light up table here just with some cups, just clear cups and cups of different colors. Just your regular drinking cups that you can buy from Walmart or wherever to explore with. This is the clay room. So they're literally just, they have access to clay and they can build and shape and create and make all kinds of really cool things. And then Taylor and their team can take it to be fired, kilned. I should be better with the terminology, but so they can create really cool things in there and just from pottery. This is just a room that has a lot of natural materials in this room, and the kiddos can play and the families can play together with those materials. They're just on shelves in baskets. Just go for it. A paint room, simply giving them the medium of paint and some paper and paint brushes, just allowing for creation and creativity. This is their river room, I believe it was called. So there's this amazing sensory experience of a little like rock walk, like a river walk, those really cool sensory like squares that you step on, and they have gel inside that move around, and other natural materials. There's also a water play table, and then of course a real canoe. Like this is so cool. They can get inside and rock around back and forth with the canoe and pretend like they're on an adventure. This is a light feature made from plastic. It just, you know, talk about like the recycled materials, a Lego wall where they're just, you know, random pieces of Legos, not sets, that they can build things. They have a display that changes out every few months, and this display is, as you can see, based on cardboard. So there was an artist that came in and created this entire piece. I mean, it's a masterpiece, honestly, just with cardboard. So look at the things that you can do with cardboard. And they actually did a replica of the entire community of Taos. So this is Taos Pueblo, the mountain behind it. Then adjacent to the display, they have a cardboard area. So kiddos and families can actually just play with pieces of cardboard and boxes and create, you know, structures or art that they can actually display with the exhibit of the art. So talk about, this is the town and community of Taos. I mean, look how detailed and intricate it was, but just all based on cardboard. And then as you can see here, some of the display pieces that some of the families and kiddos have created to add to their art exhibit. It was just super cool to be inspired by the cardboard art masterpiece, and then to allow for space for others to build things to add to the exhibit. I just kept looking at it and finding new things to find with that exhibit. So those are just some ideas. You know, think about we created in my Head Start space a learning or a reading train, and we did with boxes made like train cars in the library, and the kiddos could grab a book and go inside the train and read and flip through the book. I mean, there's just, we don't have to have a museum space. We can do things in our classrooms, in our dramatic play areas. We can do things, maybe even our local museum would allow us to do a little art exhibit with materials, or building something like that cardboard structure. Maybe a library would allow us to do something like that. Just really going to find spaces and places where families and children are, to inspire them with open-ended materials and open-ended play. So next we have up the amazing community down south. So I'll turn it over to Hannah to introduce Crystal.
Oh yeah, definitely. Thank you, Lindsay. Yeah, we just wanted to give to just share what's been going on, and Crystal's a great one of down in Las Cruces area. So if you wanted to give a little bit about what you guys do with some loose parts over there, that'd be awesome.
Yes, absolutely. But first and foremost, I just want to give a big embrace and hug to Leticia and Macy, because meeting Leticia almost 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago, and just knowing what their community was like and the culture was like, to now you guys having these great community meetings and having engagement. Oh my gosh, what a great feeling that must feel, Leticia, for you and Macy. So I'm just sending you a big virtual hug. I was like cheering in the background when I saw those pictures.
I don't even think we had we didn't even have a coalition at the beginning of our so thank you.
No, it was just, and I think too, just hearing how a lot of coalitions, we all started somewhere. We all started somewhere, and it's just amazing to see where you guys have come, Leticia, and for Las Vegas community in just 4 years. So that's just great. But also too, I want to be able to share you guys a new and exciting initiative we have. Oh, can I share my screen, Hannah? A new initiative. Oh, thank you, Lindsay. A new initiative we have. Finally, we have a launch date of our Vamos Niños Children's Mobile Museum. You guys, this has been going in the works since maybe like 2015. So it's almost be 10, and for us to have great community collaboration and to have ideas and trying to figure out like which communities we need to, in a sense, focus on. We're having our launch dates coming up. Specifically tomorrow is going to be here in the Anthony community. We're hopefully covering all of, focusing on Doña Ana County, and then going into Hatch for April 12th, and then Las Cruces April 19th. And families get an opportunity to actually go and take, in a sense, like a tour inside of the mobile museum, which was an super old RV that they renovated. And so we're super excited to have our families being able to go into the museum. And so here kinds of, if you haven't heard, about it, it's a 44-foot hauler that's been turned into a children's museum. And it's, of course, engaging and exciting for children within most rural Doña Ana County. And so we're looking at, like we all want to do, right? Breaking those barriers to introduce our science, technology, engineering, art, and math, which is, of course, 101, our STEMS concept. And so we also want to incorporate like the health and wellness. those of you who are not familiar, within our Create AC leadership that some of us were a part of, my group in the Gaston community created a wellness hub, which we broke ground just last month in Chaparral. And Chaparral, in comparison to a next local community, is about close to a 45-minute drive. So they're very much isolated. And so that was our focus in wanting to build the wellness hub out there. And in collaboration with the Success Partnership that has made this mobile museum come about, they've taken our ideas of the wellness hub and that importance of ensuring our early childhood providers are taken care of and put it into this mobile museum. So it's a great collaboration that we're having down south. But here's kind of a little snippet of what it's looking like inside. We have, yeah, coming soon. I think they just want to show you like a little sneak peek because they want you to actually go and see them. But here what we have is some of our exhibits. So this is Jake's workshop. It has a main entry, welcome center, family resource center, workbenches, and discovery boxes and video microscopes. So you can see a lot of innocence too. The middle picture can provide a lot of open-ended materials, tissue paper, rocks. We have a microscope, which a lot of the times it's going to be the majority of our families out here, it's going to be probably their first time seeing a microscope, maybe even from some of our parents, and knowing what it does and knowing how it is that we can discover different things in our community, such as bugs and leaves and, you know, anything that we have there within their environment. We have like a little garage. So it has active STEM exhibits, interactive scarf art, air wall, color changing water column, magnetic gear wall. So a lot of that cool magnetic stuff. Think about anything that can be a magnet can be put on this wall for our kids. Also music garden, a bubble art cart, big blue blocks, and then fabric weaving wall. So a lot of great we can talk about different type of open-ended materials such as fabric, different types of textured fabrics, whether it be bumpy, soft, whether it be glittery, maybe it has some sequins on it. So a lot of good sensory play can go into that as well. We have our treehouse, which is a common sensory quiet area. So we really had a lot of emphasis and interaction in building what this looks like. We have a lot of children. We've looked at our numbers, and a lot of children in our community have received a diagnosis of autism or are in the process for autism, getting an autism diagnosis. And so a lot of that, we wanted to kind of create a quiet and safe environment for them, because if they do have other children on one side of the mobile museum, this can be an area for them that can be more one-on-one. And we, in a sense, hopefully after the grand opening, hopefully limit that way the children aren't overwhelmed if they're not yet ready to interact with other children or the noise is too overstimulating for them. So with that, we have like listening tubes, lights, we have magnetics, a nice little reading nook for them. You can see in the background on the bottom right hand, it has like a beautiful scenic picture, which can be interchangeable. So it can be changed right now. It's like a beautiful forest, but it can be changed to like a night scene. It can be changed to different parts of the world that we want children to experience and explore, kind of based on the theme that they're wanting to incorporate for the mobile museum. We incorporated a pet vet and imaginative play. And I don't know if a lot of your guys' community, but I know my community in Chamberino, we have a lot of mobile stuff, right? We have a mobile vet. So we have a vet that actually comes to our community because a lot of the times our families are so busy and we have a lot of farm laborers that they can't take their pets to go to the vet and get their, yearly shots and so forth. So a lot of mobile accessibility in our communities is best and what our community is used to. And so it creates, of course, a lot of great open-ended play, you guys, and a managed play. And so, of course, you guys can find us on Instagram and Facebook with the Mobile Museum. And then here's a great support to all of our sponsors and collaborators within different foundations, Kellogg's being the biggest one, which we're all familiar with, and then other great state representatives and other companies within our organization, within our community that have helped out. So we're just excited for this huge launch date because we've been waiting for this. And then hopefully we'll see where it takes us from there. Yeah, so go ahead and stop share.
So blown away right now. This is like so incredible. And exactly, like, I feel like this meeting was, like, leading us to this somehow. It's like, "Oh, mobile? Oh," like, and then boom, you did it. So, it is incredible.
Yeah,
It makes me wanna go to cruises so bad, or Hatch or any of them. Bobby,
I
maybe we should
know.
go and let's just experience it. It's
I
amazing.
know.
Let's do it, Hannah. Girls night, girls weekend.
And it's just something where it's something so amazing. Back in 2015, of course, I wasn't the director. I was on our leadership team, but I still wanted to be a part of other community projects as I absolutely love. And just to start off as like an employee being a part of this, and then being able to make changes as a director and being able to get my team involved, and it just not be me, but have my team members be involved and be a part of it and share their ideas. Like, the families in our community, what is it that they would want? What is it that you feel or you hear that the kids are missing? Of course, STEM is big in our schools, right? Down here in our rural community, and of course, our local districts. But what about our babies? Like we said, we can start having this conversation with our infants and toddlers and under 5, but how can we provide them with the opportunity and experience? And this is, in a sense, a way to get to them, because that is our biggest sometimes barrier, is that involvement and engagement, right? And transportation. So guess what? We're going to show up on your front doorstep. We'll be right there with the big old mobile museum. And so it's just going to be so exciting. And I'm like, they're even looking for drivers. I was like, oh, I will drive it wherever you need me to drive it to. Yeah. We'll go. And and I think the best part is that we have such great parks, and we have our fields out here that if we just park it in the field, oh, all the families are just going to come and are just going to be so grateful for this. So we are so excited for it.
This is amazing. I mean, and you can just see from whatever we're doing, if it's just even how we set up, say, our classroom, or maybe even our waiting area in our program, or how, Bobby, you were giving us real life examples of how you set up your office space so that you can show families, all the way to museums and mobile museums and like our Imagination Center. It's just amazing what you all are doing around the state. Yeah, go ahead, Crystal.
Something I was going to add, and I don't think we've had representation from anybody in like the Deming community. So like Luna County, I know they're part of one of our like collaboration for a nonprofit through another foundation that I'm a part of, where I don't know if you're familiar with Play Charity. It's an actual children's museum in Deming. And if you guys haven't, look it up. It's called Play Charity. So Play and then Charity, SHARITY. And the reason it's charity, it's because they do a lot of charity work in the community. And like Paige says, they get a lot of donations, and they have a great relationship with community members, and they love them. Collaboration between the city and the county and Deming, and their museum is just amazing. And so we were able to collaborate with them to get some ideas, because they have a lot. They're similar as far as demographics and socioeconomic status. They're also like a border town, having Columbus and Palomas there so close. And so we were able to collaborate with them a lot as far as a lot of ideas on how to be, in a sense, culturally appropriate for our families, and it kind of not be something that maybe off the grid for them, but something more appropriate and not too intimidating for them. So I think sometimes it could be a lot of intimidating, or parents feel that themselves aren't competent in certain things that we're presenting to their kids, and maybe too, in a sense, embarrassed or ashamed to take their children to that, because they don't even know. They're not going to be able to have those follow-up questions to what their children are playing and exploring. So that was something that we really considered in the different materials, and making it so focused on those loose-ended versus all this kind of complicated stuff that might be for them. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. So excited for your launches. I've been following on social media. It's so fun. Oh my gosh. And Shamisha said earlier, it's like you reached into my mind. And I think most of us are very familiar with the landscape of our state, and it's very rural. And it doesn't take but 20 minutes or so to get outside of even downtown Albuquerque to be to places that do not have running water, to be to places that are very rural. So most of our state is very rural. In the county that I worked in, we had a large farming migrant community on one end of the county. We had a small community that was kind of like the hub of the county that everything was at, but it was 2 hours away to our reservation community. And so just so rural, let alone the ranching communities and the neighboring counties that were so rural that that kind of central community place was their hub to go to Walmart and you know, get their prescriptions and go to doctor's appointments that were 2.5 hours away. And so this is the reality of most of our state. So how do we get to our families and little ones that are in our rural areas or don't have the access and privilege to transportation and things like that to really share just these amazing things, whether it be, you know, a mobile literacy van. You know, I've seen that. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I need to get that name of that I was just watching a video about it, that they're delivering books on the Navajo reservation. And whether it be something like that or this open-ended play, cool museum, like all of it, you know, how do we get to our families? How do we, Tamara said it earlier, how do we meet our families where they're at so that we can really share the love of learning and in this space, open-ended play with our families and support them. Just awesome work you all are doing across the state, whether it be on small scales and how we model to how we set up even a corner of our classroom or space in our programs, how we're doing it on larger scales and raising parts, all the way to museums and places and spaces for others to share and access open-ended materials. It's just really awesome to see and just be inspired by you all and all of the work. So thank you so much for sharing. Great work. Let us know how the launch goes, Crystal. I'm sure it will be really successful and super fun.
Yes,
Gosh,
thank you.
It reminds me too of the creativity, right, in open-ended play, and that it doesn't have to look like one thing. We can be creative in how we have our approaches to how we model or store or collect parts or expose families to that. We really can be creative in that approach too. But yeah, how do we get to families but by being mobile, right? And really going above and beyond. So great job, everyone.
I know something to add, Lindsay. I know. So, you guys all know my husband's a truck driver, and he just transitioned into the public schools. So he's now a teacher at Gadsden High School, and so we have the semi flatbed trailers, and I'm like, oh, well, we can make something out of this. We can take and create something for the families in the community and take that big old flatbed truck all through the community. So I'm kind of like picking his brain. He's still not about it, but it's something too, right? When something starts, you're like, oh, what more can we do? What bigger space can we make of it if these trailer flatbeds are not going to be used anymore?
That's awesome.
Crystal, I have a family that's from Anthony that I support, and I already messaged them and was like, go check this out, because they go over there like every weekend and they have a huge family with a bunch of kids. So
Oh,
I'm already promoting it for you for
wonderful.
Oh,
Thank you.
that's
Thank
awesome.
you.
That's another piece too, that is the vision of SOAR, is for all of us to share resources too, exactly like what just happened. I mean, that's really awesome. Yay, live and in color, right? That just happened right now. So good. Wow. So fun. I feel like we all need a field trip to go see the cool museums across the state. And like everyone's classrooms and everyone's programs. Just really cool. Maybe that needs to be our next project, that we like buy a bus to transport everyone to everyone's communities. But we have to have some open-ended play on our bus, because that would only make it more fun. Okay, so now we are going to give you all some time to explore our Padlet. And we really do read our surveys and our feedback because we want you all to inform the project as we move along, not just, you know, what was your experience at the end of the whole thing. And so something that we've heard from you all is that we would like more tools and resources on how to facilitate activities and how to be a facilitator, because this is a train the trainer model. So everything that we're giving you as a participant, you have access to use to be a trainer. So whether you take an activity from one of our sessions and you know, have a family night and use one of those activities, or you take that to your team or other early childhood professionals, like within a coalition or some sort of event, and you use one of these activities, however you feel is appropriate to pick and choose from what you've learned across the time that we've been together and that we will continue to learn together to facilitate and be a trainer. We remember our Padlet. We'll throw the link in the chat too. Hannah was already on it and put the link to Vamos Niños already in our Padlet. So thank you so much, Hannah. That's just awesome. And show your teams what other counties are doing. But take some time. We're going to give you about 10 minutes or so to just go through and take some time to look at the resources throughout our time together. You know, as you know, we started with this really deep dive and reflection of ourselves the first couple of sessions, and then we moved into more of the activities and you being a participant. But everything that we've done, you have access to as a trainer. So, you know, just take a little bit of time and look at these resources. Also, nothing is copyrighted. So if you watch this, you know, video and want to share that on Brene Brown and empathy, you know, how might you incorporate that into something that you might be facilitating? And it doesn't have to be exactly how we did it. So that's what I want to say with that. At the end of our time together, our last session together, which will come before we know it already in June, we're going to also give you all the Early Childhood Leadership Toolkit too, which has lots and lots of activities in there to facilitate as a trainer, lead your teams through, your families and caregivers through, communities. So you're going to have even more tools to access with that if you already don't have that. And if you do have that, then you get another copy to provide, you know, maybe you can gift to someone, a community member or a colleague, or keep several copies in your office or center. So we are going, it doesn't stop here. We're going to get more tools and have more activities for y'all to draw from. But let's just take some time here right now to dive in. And then I'd love to hear your examples of how you might use some of these resources and some of these activities in future training opportunities. So go ahead, feel free to turn your cameras off, listen to some music, whatever makes you comfy, and take about 10 minutes to look through the Padlet and enjoy. And thank you again for that feedback so we could take some time to pause and ground in what we've learned thus far and think about the ways that we could facilitate activities or incorporate some of these resources into some things that we might be training and supporting on. So that was really awesome. And again, just making our program and our project that much better. So thank you. All right. Are there any brave souls that just saw some resources and were thinking like, hey, I might do it like this? Oh, we already have one, Crystal. All right. Oh, there. Gosh. As I knew you all
You
would
just
be on
tell us,
top of
Lindsay,
it.
and we're on it, girl.
Yes. You understood the assignment.
Yes. I think
Go for it.
something. Yes, thank you. I think I both appreciate you and Hannah giving us this time within our meeting today to look through the Padlet, because I think we get so busy and we're like, yes, it's great. And we see a little glimpse of it. And you know what? I'm going to get to it this afternoon, or you know what? Something to do over the weekend. And it just goes by. And so thank you for that, for giving us this space. Something that really caught my attention on the Padlet was that video of the new, let me see, the new beginnings, where they talk about the different doulas and the women. And oh my gosh, I am in tears because I was that mom. I was that mom, especially living out here in the rural community, right? Yes, mama. I was that mom where I was afraid to be home alone and something was to happen, and who's going to take me to the hospital? Who is going to be here with me? And so it was kind of like, okay, God, like, if I'm going to have this baby, let me have it at work in Las Cruces, because someone will be there and there'll be employees, and I don't want to be with a family and then freak out the family. You know what I mean? And so, but that feeling where we like, you feel that because you feel that sense that, you know, you don't have that support, or you don't know where to reach out for that support. And I love what that doula said when she said the first 40 days after postpartum is going to affect the woman for the next 40 years of her life, like in their mental capacity and their well-being. And that, to me, that phrase alone was just so impactful, and something that I would love to share with our home visiting program that work with prenatal moms, even our current families right now going through another pregnancy or so forth. Like, that was just so impactful, because it's like, oh my gosh, if I look back and reflect and like think about what my time was like after having my daughter, my gosh, does it terrify me if that feeling is going to be like that, is going to impact me in some way or another for the next 40 years of my life, you know, when you look at it in that aspect. So that video was just, and I didn't even get to see it all, because I was like, I think I heard someone talking on the Zoom. I'm like, oh, I better get off. I need to get back on our Zoom. But that alone was just so amazing. So amazing. And then that mom was willing to give birth in the cornfield. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so spiritual, so just empowering for that mom. She said that sense of calm, just being outside. I'm like, that brings me the sense of calm. Who knows, guys? Maybe I might have my second baby out in the cotton field, in chili
There
fields.
you go. Yes, I love that. Well, so you all remember Zach, who was the dad.
Yes.
That's his wife, Mary.
Oh, wow. He doesn't even look the same. Lindsay.
They're just incredible, incredible humans.
Oh, that is
How
beautiful.
inspiring. But oh, Crystal, those little takeaways from that video and just having a conversation with early childhood professionals about just that. Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Goodness. I mean, just even having dialogue about that, what good learning can come from that.
Yeah. So thank you all for posting that video on the Padlet for us to use with our families.
Absolutely. Thank you for that example. I think it was Tamara, then Shamisha, then Bobby. So go ahead. Floor is
Yeah.
yours.
Oh my gosh, Crystal, I felt the same way after watching that video. It was just, and that 40 days, right? And how it affects moms. And that was one of the big takeaways on the Padlet for me. I wanted to also say that one of the things that I really liked too was the presentation on using your strengths to make habits happen. And I thought the way that I can use that presentation is to break it down and actually incorporate some of those things for moms. So, you know, if a mom did have a hard 40 days and now like she's going through it, how can I help her bring out her personal strengths to know that she's an amazing mom, right? And so pointing out some of her strengths, but asking her, like, what do you think your strengths are? I'm having to do kind of a presentation for work, and one of the things that I put in that presentation was, yes, we have our outcomes that are really important, but what are the outcomes that parents want to take away from their experience in this program? What do they see in themselves? What do I see in them? And what can I help them see in themselves after when to walk away with, right? And I felt like that presentation just boosting confidence and getting them to like maybe make some of those macro changes to, you know, the you know, it can help them grow and strengthen who they are as a mom and not and as a dad, but also just to have that confidence that sometimes the parents ask us questions and I'm like, yes, that's you did exactly what you should have done. You are the expert. I am not the expert in your child. You are the expert in your child. And you know, moms always say, you always tell me that, because it's the truth. And so I really like that presentation because I think it could be broken down and presented to families to help build them up in their own confidence in their role as a parent.
What a great example too of how we could use the same video with professionals and then families. Oh my gosh. The mic is yours, girl.
Alrighty, so no. um, First of all, the very first thing that I was drawn to was that video and watched it. I was
Yeah.
like literally was just it. I don't know what happened, but it was just like, boop, I need to watch this. So watched the video and brought out some of those same kind of things. And what a powerful statement and what an incredible reminder. Another thing that really caught my attention, like Tamara just said, that really using those strengths. And one of the things that I used to do with families would be I wouldn't tell them what our standards are, what our, you know, what we wanted them to meet. I asked them, what are your milestones? How will you know?
Yeah.
For your family, how will you know that your child, what type of child do you want to have at the end of this? So really starting with that conversation with families, even as a classroom teacher, you know, where I would think, okay, I want to go for academics. And so my mind is on letters, numbers, this, I want them to do this. And the parents would say things like, I just want them to be kind. I want them to know how to interact with each other. And it made me stop and go, you know what? I should actually ask you where you see your child or what you see your child doing. Also, another activity, and this is the last thing I promise. I'm like, if y'all can't tell, I've been holding it in this whole time. So I'm like, y'all are getting it full blast because it's my birthday on Sunday. So y'all are getting it full blast. Um, but on one of the activities that I actually did, I used the picture that we talked about where we had to sit down and look at the picture and find all of the positives. So I did a little bit of a take on that. So I printed out a lot of very difficult pictures that were houses that were messy, families that looked, you know, as if they were having a difficult time. And then when I was able, and I just did it as an icebreaker for a family gathering that we were doing. But I gave it to each table and I had them stop and look at all the positives. So it was interesting to see some groups were like, they came up with 17 things. Some groups were up into 22. Some were like 5, and they're just like scratching their head. But it was interesting because then that opened up the conversation of when you go into or you're talking to a family or you go into a home, what is it that you're really looking at? And what are you seeing? Are you training yourself in your mind to think of what are the positives? What are the things that we can use to build this family up? And or are you going in and saying, well, your dishes are dirty and you need to vacuum your floor. And I don't know what's going on in this situation. But I feel like a lot of times we are tempted to just judge. And when we do that, we lose the family, we lose the children, we lose the whole point of why we're going in there. It's really important that we go in and do so with an open mind and open heart to what you can use to help this family move. Because my standards of what I think is next may not be what this family is ready for. And so if I'm taking my agenda in, I'm overriding this family's power. And that's the last thing that families need. They've already had their power taken away, many of them. And so giving that power back to them and letting them decide, what do you want your child to be like when they're 5, when they're 10, when they're 15, when they're graduating? And those are the questions that I really find are really helpful to start off with. All right, now I'm done.
Beautiful. Oh, you don't have to be done. Happy birthday wishes. Oh my gosh. So exciting. And many, many more. I think Olga put it. Yeah, happy birthday and many more in the chat. That's so exciting. Yay. Birthday weekend. All right, Bobby, the mic is yours.
All right. I was doing a little happy birthday dance for you. So we're like, hey, hey, yay, yay, yay. Okay, so I'm gonna take this in a different direction because what I heard you say, obviously all of us interpret it differently. So what I heard was, how am I going to use this SOAR training and this Padlet to train my colleagues, and how am I going to share this? Because everything that we've learned up to now, I love it. I already incorporate it with my visits. I really feel that my visits have gone up a notch because of this, because I have gotten so much knowledge and I'm just pushing it all there. But how is this going to help me professionally? We have teams, we have area teams in our organization, and we in the past have always obviously been in person, and we've always met as a team in person, and we've continued that through virtual, but it is virtual. And as we all know, virtual it's a hit or miss, right? It's like if your dog's barking downstairs, you're in the meeting, but you're not present, so I feel there's like a disconnect a little in our areas. And I always keep going back to the very first session of the DISC assessment and taking that. I just have this dream or this vision of taking that to my area and all of us engaging in this and learning how we all learn. So when, this can help all of us as colleagues and like as team members to be able to be like, oh, Bobby's a very visual, she's very hands-on. So when I present something, I want to incorporate that, or, how are our meetings? How can we balance these meetings to be able to meet everybody's learning needs? And I just see it being like a thing that we can like bring back this connection that all of our teams had before. But not that it's not like hateful, please don't misread me. It's just we're virtual. So there's just a little disconnect. And we're starting to like meet once a month in person. And that's why I keep thinking about this, like DISC assessment, and how just everything that he talked about, like how if we know how others learn, we have better relationships, we can communicate better, and it just brings it like full circle before I feel like I can bring all this other amazing information about home visiting I feel like I need to have a foundation of like, hey, how does this one and this one and this one, and how can we, all come together as a group? So that's what I'm taking away, is how to bring my colleagues, like connect them, and then I can be like, okay, now we all know each other. Now I got all kinds of cool information. Let's share all of this together. But it's not going to be received if I don't know and they don't know how we all can like connect together in that split space. So I kind of taken it a different route, but that's where I'm coming from.
That's perfect. All of these interpretations are perfect. And Bobby, you're talking about ways to build, use it as a team building, use some of these activities as team building, and sharing information, building onto that. Just even having a 10-minute opening activity of some open-ended play is a great way to start any sort of meeting or training or family event as like a mindfulness activity / open-ended play. I mean, and they're getting so much out of it. It's just so fun. It helps ground you. It's restorative, and that helps build, or what can we create together can be a team building activity with open-ended materials. There's just so many places to go. Olga said in the chat, as a home visitor coordinator, I will have the opportunity to train home visitors and also train and bring resources to families during socializations. Absolutely. And I'll turn the mic over to Leticia and then to end with Shamisha.
I think I was kind of on the same page as like Bobby a little bit, is we've been having a difficult time like just building those new relationships with families on different levels. Like, of course, as family services, I talk to them on a daily, but having our whole program on like one page on building those trusting relationships with families. And I think after COVID and, we're doing virtual and this, we weren't really like having these conversations. So now it's like, sometimes it's a little bit hard to sit there and for teaching staff or our director to have these, these deep conversations with families. So I plan on like, introducing my team to some of these resources. And then also on like my family service level, it's sometimes hard for families to like gain that trust, because I've grown up in this community from birth to now, and I am a younger person in our program, and sometimes the families just see me as kind of like, oh, you're my friend's daughter, or like, or you are my student, so I think sharing these resources kind of like opens up that conversation of like being in that vulnerable place, because sometimes they have a hard time, opening up, because I do know them on a personal level, but sometimes that can open that conversation to conversations with families. So I'm excited to, I didn't really watch a specific videos, but I was just overwhelmed at all the resources that, we can incorporate into our everyday work life. So that was just my share.
Love that, Leticia. That's so true. In our smaller communities, people are our cousins, and or they've known us since we were in diapers and things. And so how can we have these conversations? But I loved how you're talking about how do I introduce it to my team and then families. It's just such good activities. I knew you all would be the experts in how to use these resources. And we're going to end with that birthday girl.
I'm like, okay, this will be quick, I promise. So, actually, during the SOAR, having gone through parts of SOAR, it sparked an idea for me. So, during the next few months, I'm going to be training our staff. So, what I will actually have is a mock classroom. And so everyone will come in as a child. So we're going to enter in and have this experience, because I realized getting to play and do all of these different things, I realized that our teachers don't always get that opportunity. And if they were kind of raised old school, or they learned kind of the old school way, the older way, it's completely different when you come into a classroom that's noisy and busy and moving around, and there's all these different parts. And so I realized, oh my gosh, my teachers have never had this experience. So I'm going to give them the gift of the experience of being in my classroom when they're in early Head Start and Head Start. and give them an opportunity to also have centers, just like just like the kids have centers. They're going to have different centers. Of course, it'll be, geared towards their level of learning, but just kind of giving them that childlike experience, because we lose that. And really, this was the inspiration for that. So this is wonderful, guys. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, I want to take this training.
Come on down. We'll
We
have
all do. Count us all in. What a good idea. I love this. I love that some of the SOAR resources can be of use to this training and many more trainings and family events and things that you all will build on over the years even. So, wow. I knew you all would be the experts. You just needed to have the question, right? So thank you so, so much for such a rich conversation. I'm going to turn it over to Hannah for some announcements and our survey. Thank you all for your time today.
Whew, powerful. I love it. What a way to really start and well, hopefully almost end Friday, right? But thank you guys so much. And I just, like always, threw in the chat our survey. So if you have time, please go ahead and fill out that guy for us. But really, this is the month where we're doubling up. So we will have another SOAR meeting April 26th. So the last Friday of the month. Same time as always, 9 to noon. And then I will have more of an update regarding our in-person meeting in June, and our finalized dates were the 5th through 7th, but where we'll be staying hopefully by then. You can think of the layout as kind of the same as our last one, so starting later in the day that first day, and then ending with lunch that last day, so nothing too much will change there, just where we're going to stay is going to be different. So hopefully I'll have more of an update and some finalized answers for you guys with that. And then I think that's about it. You guys, we're going to have that April 26th. We have our May 17th, and then we're in person. And I don't even want to say what's after that because it makes me sad. So we're just going to leave it like that. And if you guys have any questions or if you want us to share any resource, please send it to me or Lindsay. We'll put it in the Padlet, or I can do a blast email, whatever works for you guys. But thank you for being here. We got 5 minutes left, so you get 5 minutes back, hopefully, to go do whatever you need to. But thank you for joining us, you guys. We always appreciate it.
Can we
Wow.
sing happy birthday to Shamisa?
Yeah,
Oh, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1.
Happy birthday to you.
Cha cha cha.
Happy birthday to you.
Cha cha cha.
Happy birthday, dear Shamisa.
Cha cha cha.
Happy birthday to you.
Yes, girl, celebrate.
Happy
you
birthday.
all so much.
Go, Shorty. It's your
Party
birthday.
time.
Yes. Oh my gosh, have so much fun. Thank you all so, so much for being here. Thank you all for the work that you all do. Paola's joining us always from around the world and just that dedication. I love that so much. Gosh, you all have a fantastic, fantastic weekend. Thank you again.
Guys, bye.
Bye, thank
you guys so much.
Happy birthday.
you.
And